The cracked leather of the driver's seat had become a familiar comfort, almost a second skin, to me. At 38, being an Uber driver in the sprawling, relentless city wasn't exactly the vibrant career I'd envisioned gracing my LinkedIn profile. But after a soul-crushing layoff from a senior position at a marketing firm, the kind of layoff delivered with forced smiles, insincere platitudes about restructuring, and a cardboard box for my personal belongings, it was a lifeline. A precarious, unpredictable lifeline, but a lifeline nonetheless. Days were a blur of traffic and terse conversations. Nights were the worst. The drunk spilling out of bars, slurring their addresses, and then arguing about the quickest route. The loud, boisterous groups heading to clubs, their music leaking from my car speakers long after they'd slammed the door shut. The endless, often contradictory, requests to change the radio station, the temperature, the route. Sometimes, though, there were quiet passengers, the tired office workers, the students hunched over textbooks, the elderly couples heading home from a movie. The ones who just wanted a ride in peace, a brief respite from the chaos of the city. Those were the nights I could almost convince myself that this was a sustainable, even enjoyable, existence. Those were the nights I could almost forget the sting of failure, the humiliation of being replaced, the gnawing fear that I'd never find my way back to something more. Then there was him. The first time, it was a late-night pickup request from a trendy, independent coffee shop near the university. The notification pinged through my Uber app, and I sighed inwardly, steeling myself for the usual sleep-deprived, caffeine-fueled student wired on energy drinks and last-minute cramming. But when he slid into the back seat, the world seemed to shift on its axis, just a fraction, but enough to unsettle my carefully constructed sense of normalcy. He had this incredible shock of messy, untamed brown hair that looked as if he'd just rolled out of bed, or perhaps run his fingers through it 1,000 times in nervous energy. Big, almost impossibly blue eyes, fringed with impossibly long lashes, that held a spark of intelligence and a hint of something else, something I couldn't quite decipher. And a jawline that could cut glass, sharp and defined against the soft curve of his cheek. He was young, undeniably, vibrantly young. Fresh, like a spring morning after a long winter. "Hi, I'm Liam," he said, his voice a touch shy, hesitant, but warm and musical, like the first notes of a familiar song. "Heading to Elm Street, please." "Hey, Liam." "I'm Alex," I replied, instantly regretting the slight huskiness that had crept into my voice. I tried to sound as professional, as detached, as possible. I sneaked furtive glances in the rearview mirror, acutely aware of the age difference, the invisible but very real boundaries that separated us. Barely out of high school, probably. College freshman at most. My internal alarm bells, dormant for far too long, started clanging, a dissonant chorus of warnings and anxieties. But he was polite, quiet, and even offered me a piece of the oversized pastry he was carrying, a chocolate croissant that smelled intoxicatingly of butter and sugar. "It's probably stale," he said, blushing slightly, "but they make them fresh every morning." "Thanks," I mumbled, taking a bite. It was, as he'd predicted, slightly stale, but the rich chocolate filling and the gesture itself were surprisingly comforting. Over the next few weeks, it happened again. And again. Maybe 5, 6 times. Always late at night, always from somewhere near the university, the coffee shop, the library, a late-night art supply store. It was statistically improbable, bordering on the absurd, almost comical. The odds of getting the same Uber driver, in a city of millions, were astronomically low. I started recognizing his name on the app, Liam B., and feeling a strange, unsettling anticipation whenever a request popped up in his vicinity. A fluttering sensation in my chest, a warmth in my cheeks. I told myself it was just curiosity, a mild amusement at the sheer coincidence of it all. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Each ride was essentially the same. A brief, courteous greeting. A few polite, almost perfunctory, questions about traffic or the notoriously unpredictable weather. but there was also a shared sense of amusement at the improbable coincidence, a growing, almost unspoken familiarity. The comfortable silence between us spoke volumes, a silent acknowledgement of the unusual connection we seemed to share. One night, as he was carefully balancing a stack of canvases in the back seat, he mentioned that he was studying photography. "It's a brutal major," he said with a sigh, "endless deadlines, impossible expectations, and a constant feeling that I'm failing." And I found myself genuinely, unexpectedly interested. "That's cool. Have you ever thought of doing portraits professionally? You know, headshots, weddings, stuff like that?" I asked, trying to sound casual, conversational. He chuckled, a low, melodic sound that sent a shiver down my spine. "Maybe someday. If I ever manage to graduate and escape the crushing debt of tuition. Right now, I'm just trying to pass my classes and learn how to take a decent picture of my cat. She's a notoriously uncooperative subject." Another time, he hopped into the car, looking visibly stressed, his brow furrowed, his blue eyes clouded with worry. "Rough night?" I asked, my voice tinged with genuine concern. You have no idea," he groaned, running a hand through his perpetually disheveled hair, making it even more tousled. "Major critique in my photography class tomorrow morning, and I'm pretty sure my project is a complete and utter disaster. I stayed up all night trying to fix it, but it just keeps getting worse." Without thinking, without weighing the consequences, without considering the potential ramifications, I blurted out, "Hey, I'm not a photography expert, by any means. My artistic skills peaked in elementary school with finger painting. But I do have a decent eye, I think. I mean, I know what I like, and I know what looks good. I can offer a fresh perspective, if you'd like. But it's not worth getting out of my way, I understand." He hesitated for a moment, his gaze searching mine in the rearview mirror, his blue eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and something akin to hope. Then, he smiled, that same shy, tentative smile that always managed to make my stomach flip, my heart pound a little faster. "Really? Would you mind?" No, I wouldn't mind at all," I said, trying to regain my composure. "So, I could wait you out?" When we pulled up to his apartment building, a slightly dilapidated brick structure near the edge of campus, he seemed reluctant to exit the car. He was fidgeting in his seat, a whirlwind of nerves. The car was silent other than the hum of the engine. "This is me," he said, pointing to his door. He was grateful for a moment of time, a moment where he didn't have to look at his apartment. "Want a word?" I asked. He paused and looked at me. "Just a bit." He unbuckled his seatbelt and turned his body to face me. He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair, making it even messier. I could see his pupils were dilated, and he was looking directly at my mouth. The radio was turned down low, but I could still make out a soft ballad playing. "Listen," he said. "This is probably stupid. And I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I feel like we've had this weird connection, this thing going on, for weeks now. And I wanted to say something about it." My heart pounded in my chest. I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice. "I felt it too, Liam," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't think it was appropriate to say anything. Because of the situation." "Screw the situation," he said, his eyes burning into mine. "I'm not usually like this. I don't usually just throw myself at people. But you're different. You see me, Alex. You really see me." He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and cupped my jaw, his thumb stroking my cheek. The touch sent a jolt of electricity through my body, a wave of heat washing over me. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his voice husky with desire. I hesitated for a split second, the alarms in my head screaming warnings. But the desire, the longing, the connection, it was too strong to ignore. "Yes," I whispered, closing my eyes. Please. His lips met mine, tentatively at first, a soft, hesitant exploration. It was a gentle pressure, a fleeting touch, a question asked and tentatively answered. Then, as if a dam had broken, the kiss deepened. He angled his head, pressing his lips more firmly against mine, and I responded in kind, abandoning all restraint. His hand moved from my jaw to the back of my neck, his fingers threading through my hair, pulling me closer. The cramped space of the car suddenly felt intimate, charged with a raw, electric energy. The cracked leather of the seats, the faint scent of cheap air freshener, the distant hum of the city, everything faded into the background, replaced by the intense sensation of Liam's lips on mine. I pulled him closer, reaching across the center console, my hands finding their way to his waist, gripping him tightly. I could feel his heart pounding in his chest, mirroring my own frantic heartbeat. The gear shift dug into my side, but I was past caring. The kiss went on, a timeless moment suspended in the confined space of the car. It was a kiss of longing, of desire, of vulnerability, of connection. It was a kiss that shattered the silence, that broke down the barriers, that opened the door to something new, something unexpected, something potentially life-changing. It was a kiss that sealed their fate, that bound them together in a way that neither of them could have predicted. It was also a kiss that reeked of irresponsibility and breaking the professional code, but in that moment, Alex couldn't have cared less. Finally, breathless, they broke apart, their eyes locked, their faces flushed. The windows were starting to fog up, and the air was thick. "Wow," Liam said, his voice shaky. I didn't know if that would work." "Me neither," I said, managing a weak smile. "But, wow." The silence hung in the air, thick with possibility and uncertainty. The engine of the car continued to hum, a quiet reminder of the reality outside their little bubble. He straightened up, his cheeks flushed, and looked out the window for a long moment. "So," he said, turning back, "what happens now?" I didn't have an answer. I was still reeling from the kiss, from the sheer audacity of it all. The alarms in my head were still blaring, but they were now drowned out by a powerful sense of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this could work. "I don't know," I admitted honestly. "I need to think about this, Liam. This is complicated. But I want to see you again." A smile flickered across his face. "Really?" "Really," I confirmed. "But not as an Uber driver. I'll text you." He nodded, his eyes shining with anticipation. He opened the car door and stepped out, turning back to face me before he closed it. "Text me soon, Alex," he said. And then he was gone, disappearing into the dimly lit hallway of his apartment building. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the closed door, replaying the kiss in my mind. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process what had just happened. I had kissed a passenger. A much younger passenger. My career could be over. My life could be ruined. But as I started the car and pulled away from the curb, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just taken the first step on a new, uncharted path. A path that was terrifying, yes, but also incredibly exciting. The next few days were a blur of conflicting emotions. I couldn't stop thinking about Liam, about his blue eyes, his messy hair, his passion for photography. I replayed the kiss over and over in my mind, each time feeling a renewed surge of desire. I also wrestled with guilt, with self-doubt, with the fear of judgment. Was I taking advantage of him? Was I just projecting my own unfulfilled desires onto someone who was still so young and impressionable? Was I setting myself up for heartbreak? I confided in my best friend, Sarah, a pragmatic lawyer who had always been the voice of reason in my life. She listened patiently to my story, her expression unreadable. "Alex," she said finally, "you know this is crazy, right? This could end badly. Very badly. Think about the power dynamic. Think about the age difference. Think about the potential legal ramifications if things go south. I know, I said, sighing. I've thought about all of that. But I can't help how I feel, Sarah. I haven't felt this alive in years. He makes me feel seen. Sarah sighed. I get it, Alex. You've been stuck in a rut for a long time. But please, be careful. Don't let your hormones cloud your judgment. Protect yourself. And protect him. I promised her I would. But deep down, I knew that my heart had already made its decision. 3 days after that fateful kiss, I finally texted Liam. Coffee? I wrote. His reply was instantaneous. Yes. When and where? We met at a small, unassuming cafe in a neutral location, far from the university and my usual Uber haunts. I arrived early, my nerves on edge, and ordered a black coffee, trying to calm myself. When Liam walked in, my heart skipped a beat. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, his hair even messier than I remembered. He looked younger, more vulnerable, more real. He smiled when he saw me, that same shy, tentative smile that had captivated me from the beginning. All my doubts and anxieties seemed to melt away. We talked for hours that day, about everything and nothing. We talked about our fears, our dreams, our expectations. We talked about the challenges that lay ahead, the potential obstacles that we would have to overcome. I was honest with him about my concerns, about my worries about the age difference, about the potential judgment from others. I told him that I didn't want to hurt him, that I didn't want to hold him back from achieving his goals. He listened patiently, his blue eyes filled with understanding and compassion. He told me that he knew this wouldn't be easy, that he knew there would be challenges. But he also told me that he believed in us, that he believed in the connection that we shared. I'm not afraid of the age difference, Alex, he said. I'm not afraid of what other people might think. I'm only afraid of losing you. His words touched me deeply, melting away the last vestiges of my resistance. I reached across the table and took his hand, squeezing it tightly. I'm not going anywhere, Liam, I said. If you'll have me. He smiled, a genuine, heart-stopping smile that reached all the way to his eyes. I'll have you, he said. Always. From that moment on, we were a couple. An unconventional couple, perhaps, but a couple nonetheless. We spent our days exploring the city, discovering hidden gems and sharing new experiences. We spent our nights talking, laughing, and falling deeper in love. I continued to drive for Uber, but I started reducing my hours, dedicating more time to writing. Liam encouraged me to pursue my passion, to believe in my talent. He became my muse, my inspiration, my biggest supporter. He also introduced me to his world, to the vibrant, creative community of artists and photographers that he surrounded himself with. I found myself inspired by their energy, their passion, their dedication to their craft. I even started taking a photography class myself, eager to learn more about the art form that Liam loved so much. Our relationship wasn't perfect. There were challenges, of course. There were moments of insecurity, moments of doubt, moments of fear. There were times when I worried that I was holding him back, that I was preventing him from living a normal life. And there were times when he worried that I would eventually tire of him, that I would realize I had made a mistake. But we always talked things through, honestly and openly. We always communicated our feelings, our fears, our desires. And we always came back to the same conclusion, that we were better together than we were apart. One evening, as we were walking through a park, hand in hand, enjoying the sunset, Liam stopped and turned to face me. He took my hands in his blue eyes shining with love. Alex, he said, I know this hasn't been easy. And I know there will be more challenges ahead. But I want you to know that I'm in this for the long haul. I love you more than words can say. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I smiled, tears welling up in my eyes. "I love you too, Liam," I said. "More than you know." He pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me, and we stood there for a long moment, embraced in the golden light of the setting sun, two souls connected, two hearts intertwined. That night, as we lay in bed, wrapped in each other's arms, I realized that I had finally found what I had been searching for all my life. I had found love, I had found purpose, I had found myself. I was no longer just an Uber driver, a former marketing executive, a lonely man struggling to find his way. I was Alex, a writer, a photographer, a lover, a friend. And I was finally, truly happy. A few years later, I was driving, and a request popped up. The name was Liam, but not the Liam I knew. It was his sister, a woman I'd only met a handful of times. She was going to the airport. When I pulled up, she looked surprised, then smiled knowingly. "Hey, Alex," she said. "Small world, who?" "Tell me about it," I said, chuckling. "Liam told me to tell you he's almost ready," she said as she put her luggage in the trunk. "Almost ready for what?" I asked, a knot of anxiety forming in my stomach. "You'll see," she said, winking. "He'll explain everything." The drive to the airport was filled with small talk, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was up. Liam's sister was being unusually secretive, and I had a nagging suspicion that he was planning something. When we arrived at the airport, she thanked me for the ride and gave me a cryptic hug. "Good luck, Alex," she said. "You're going to need it." As she walked away, I pulled out my phone and texted Liam. "What's going on?" I wrote. "Your sister is acting weird." His reply was immediate. "Just trust me. Meet me at the park where we had our talk a few years ago. At sunset." My anxiety ratcheted up another notch. What was he planning? Was he going to break up with me? Was he going to tell me he was moving away? My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. I spent the rest of the day in a state of nervous anticipation, unable to focus on anything. I tried to write, but the words wouldn't come. I tried to take photos, but the images were blurry and lifeless. As the sun began to set, I drove to the park, my heart pounding in my chest. I parked the car and walked towards the spot where we had had that fateful conversation a few years ago, the spot where we had decided to take a chance on love. As I approached, I saw Liam standing there, waiting for me. He was dressed in a suit, his hair perfectly styled, his eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. My breath caught in my throat. He looked beautiful. As I got closer, I noticed that he was surrounded by people. His family, his friends, his photography classmates. They were all holding cameras, pointed at me. I stopped, confused and bewildered. "Liam, what's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. He smiled, that same heart-stopping smile that had captivated me from the beginning. He took my hand in his and led me to the center of the group. "Alex," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "you know how much I love you. You're my best friend, my lover, my inspiration. You've changed my life in so many ways. You've made me a better person." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you," he said. "Will you marry me?" I burst into tears, overwhelmed with joy and emotion. "Yes," I sobbed. "Yes, of course, I'll marry you." He slipped a ring onto my finger, a simple silver band engraved with the words "I see you." The cameras flashed, capturing the moment for posterity. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Liam pulled me close, kissing me passionately as the sun set behind us, painting the sky in a blaze of glory. I realized then that this wasn't just a fairy tale ending. It was a new beginning. A beginning filled with love, with hope, with endless possibilities. And as I looked into Liam's eyes, I knew that I had finally found my forever. And it had all started with a ride.